Imagine if you were judged publicly due to your religion. Imagine if you couldn't work certain jobs because of your religion. Imagine if you had to practice your religion in secret. Imagine if you were targeted simply because of your religion. Those who belong to the Chinese underground church do not have to imagine, because this is their reality. My name is Sophie Davenport, and I chose the topic of Chinese underground churches because I want to learn more about the culture of China. I am currently a senior studying political science, and I plan to graduate in the spring. Now, some of you may be wondering, what exactly is the Chinese underground church? Simply put, the underground church are churches that do not associate with state-sanctioned churches. The underground church are not registered with the state and are therefore not controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Underground churches are also known as home churches because worship services are often held in secret in people's homes. Underground churches operate outside the guidelines of the Communist Party and exist parallel to state-sanctioned Christian churches. The Chinese Communist Party fears the underground church because they are unable to control them. The party also believes that the underground church and religious groups in general are a threat to national security, social harmony, and their core interests. To give you a better idea of how underground churches differ from state-sanctioned churches, China officially recognizes only 5 religions: Buddhism, Catholicism, Taoism, Islam, and Protestantism. Notice that Christianity is not a recognized religion. Among the 5 officially recognized religions, the most practiced is Buddhism, with approximately 20% of the population actively practicing it. Official figures estimates that 9 million actively practice Catholicism and 40 million are active Protestants. All religion is controlled under the State Administration of Religious Affairs, or SARA. SARA controls all the aspects of religion, such as leadership appointment, selection of clergy, and the interpretation of doctrine. If a church wants to become registered, officially recognized that is, it must go through a training program that teaches how to adopt religious doctrine or teaching to the government and communist thinking. Therefore, for a church to be registered, it must be in compliance with the Communist Party ideology. The culture of the Chinese underground church is very different from the culture of the churches here in America. Francis Chan, who was a well-known American preacher, visited an underground church in China. He was amazed at how hungry they were, for lack of a better word, to hear the gospel. Those who were part of the underground church were also surprised to hear from Chan that in America, religious persecution is non-existent. They believed that the persecution they suffered was not unique. They thought it was normal. Chan noticed that how deeply devoted the underground church is to God and how much they rely on the power of prayer. Unlike American churches, the Chinese underground church has nothing else to rely on except the power of God. The underground Chinese churches suffer great persecution and are targeted daily. Unregistered churches are not allowed to teach, provide religious education, or share religious material such as photos, articles, or recordings. Some underground churches try to share the gospel through the internet, but are severely restricted in doing so. They try to reroute information through virtual private networks, or VPNs, that do not go through the China's Great Firewall, but doing so is becoming more dangerous, expensive, and hard to maintain, because it is illegal. Certain words associated with Christianity have been banned by the Chinese government, such as Jesus Christ, Jesus, or Christianity. And if someone uses a blocked word, their account can be frozen for days or weeks. To use blocked words, like Jesus Christ for example, Chinese underground churches use the acronym JD, which usually allows one to escape the punishment. The eastern coastal provinces of Zhejiang, the city of Wenzhou, the local government began to campaign to remove crosses and demolish dozens of local churches. Beijing's officials banned its party members from associating with religion to prevent, quote, the penetration of Western forces. Similar actions have been taken in other provinces as well. Religious persecution in general has worsened over the recent decades, especially in communist China. Everything in China is illegal. Pastors are often taken into custody by the police and interrogated because they are accused of changing people's minds against the Communist Party and being hostile to the government. Every aspect of religious life is monitored and controlled. The government records church sermons and church audience. The effects of persecution on the church have been both negative and positive. Some are encouraged to share the gospel even more so, yet some naturally fear government retaliation and leave the church. However, as history shows, the more the Christian church is persecuted, the more it grows. And that is exactly what the underground Chinese church is doing. Every underground church has a plan for persecution. Training to be a pastor of the underground church is hard. One has to move from place to place to train in an attempt to prevent being discovered. Some go to America to train, but most do not want to come back, nor do they. They realize how much easier it is to be a pastor in America than in China. Now I want to highlight how religion and politics are directly intertwined in China. In 2018, the Vatican and the Chinese government entered into agreement with the purpose of ending the power struggle between the Communist Party and the Vatican in appointing bishops of the Catholic Church. With the agreement, the Chinese government is to officially recognize the Pope's authority over the Catholic Church, and henceforth, the Vatican recognizes the bishops that were previously appointed by the Chinese government. However, the details of this agreement are largely kept a secret. The agreement does not cover underground churches, nor does it recognize them. The agreement was renewed in October 2020, and there are talks of it being renewed for another 2 years. China will nominate its own bishops, but the Vatican has the ultimate say in appointing bishops, a veto power, if you will. Yet, this agreement is very controversial. Some believe that the Pope is just furthering the legitimacy of the Communist Party and its power. However, it has been continuously stated that the agreement is not a political one, but a pastoral one. As you now know, religion is a key component in China, despite the country calling themselves an atheist state. The underground Chinese Christian church is the most persecuted religion in China. The underground church has always been a target and will continue to be so. Those who are part of the underground church face persecution daily and in many forms, such as interrogations and being blackmailed from employers and family members. Because the underground church worships their own way, teach their own doctrine, and refuse to be controlled, the communist China perceived them as a national threat. To combat this threat, China even entered into a political agreement with another country, that is, the Vatican. Religion impacts foreign policy in China, no matter how one looks at the issue. Religion, especially Christianity, impacts the Chinese government as well.